Welcome to this edition of You Can Get There From Here. I'm Dr. Joel Moore, Chair of the University of Central Missouri Department of Communication and Digital Media Production, and it is my opportunity and my pleasure to get to sit down with some of our alumni and visit with them about what they're doing today and how the university program helped them get there. Today, I'm visiting with Jessica Brown. Jessica earned her bachelor's degree from UCM in secondary English education with a creative writing minor. After beginning her career, she decided it was time to get that master's degree. So in 2020, Jessica enrolled in the Master of Arts in Communication program at the university, and that's where we met because she was a student in my media management and my media promotions classes. Jessica, I am so glad to see you, so glad to have you on the show. It is 99 degrees outside today as we're recording this. How's your summer going?
It's great. It's a good day to be inside recording a podcast. I'm so glad to be back with you on a podcast, Joe. That's one of the things I remembered loving about the program and your classes in particular. But summer is good. June is kind of my off month since I am the yearbook advisor. So we do camp starting in July. We're a fall delivery school. That's when our yearbooks get delivered. So June really is my time to enjoy summer.
So what all are you up to today? You said you're the yearbook advisor. Where are you? What are you doing these days?
Yes. So I am at Lee Summit North High School, my alma mater, actually. I graduated from there in 2013. And then I've been teaching. This will be going into my 8th year teaching and advising yearbook. I've been doing that the entire time. And I love it. I teach freshman English. So I have 4 sections of freshman English and then 2 sections of yearbook. But yearbook is definitely my passion, my niche. I love it.
Good. Now, I remember, if I'm correct, you were pregnant your last year of graduate school, right?
I was, yeah. So it's wild to think I took the leap and decided to start my master's during the pandemic. I think I took my very first classes the summer of 2020. So that's wild to think about. And then, yeah, by the end of it, I was pregnant with my daughter, Emerson. She will be 2 in August, which is really hard to believe, but she's a joy. My husband and I are having such a fun summer with her. The older she gets, just the more we fall in love with her. It's great.
Yeah, I have 3 kids, and I remember the terrible twos, as people call them, but they were terrible because your child is starting to figure out who they are and
Yes.
get a little bit of their own personality. So it's fun at the same time.
Yes. And I made the joke to you before we started recording that we've been calling my daughter over the last week Emerson Knievel because she is just the most active little girl. She already is climbing all over playgrounds like older kids do. And people see her out in public and they're like, wait, how old is she? And I'm like, 1, technically, still just 1, not even 2. But she did have probably her biggest injury yet. She fell in the bathtub and knocked her front teeth in. One's hanging on by a thread. I think it's back in. So we'll see what happens. But it just adds to her little personality. And we love her no matter how many teeth she has.
Well, that's a great attitude to have.
Yes.
So you came through the program. You got your bachelor's degree at UCM. You got your master's degree at UCM. None of those classes really prepare you for parenthood, do they?
They do not, unfortunately. No, that's a learn as you go day by day. But honestly, education, as you know, Joe, is kind of the same way. You can be as prepared as you want, read all the books, do all the things, but you're in there learning and growing with your students. So,
School of Hard Knocks.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, before we did the podcast, I sent you some information. I invited you on, asked you to tell me a little bit about your time here and everything. And you'd said that you loved your experience here at the University of Central Missouri, both in your undergrad in the education department and in your master's program. What was it about the university and about the 2 programs? We'll give some love to the education department. What was it about the place that really stood out to you?
I think it was really the people, the professors especially. I felt really seen for some of the first times in my life, especially in undergrad. I remember Dr. Russell Grinke. Is he still around?
I'm not sure. Over in business or over in education?
Education, yeah.
I'll have to look up and see.
Okay. Well, I remember my initial meeting with him because I was actually a transfer student from Mizzou. I was pre-journalism at Mizzou my freshman year of college, and then that just didn't work out the way I had planned. So then I transferred and decided to do education and emphasis in English because I've always loved writing. That's my passion. I know you mentioned my minor is in creative writing, so there's that little part in there too. But I remember my meeting with him, and I think he had asked me, where do you see yourself in 5, 10 years? And I'm not quite where I thought I would be. Really, I thought by now I'd be like a published author. Again, creative writing was the first love, but I think my life now and what I get to do professionally is just like more than I could have imagined in my wildest dreams. Like even just this whole podcasting thing, again, like my love for that and more like videos, like we're making this a video, Joe. Like that's wild. We're evolving. My love for that kind of stuff, I think that was always there, but really through the program, that's been unlocked. You've helped me learn that. My other professors, Dr. Newsom, Eric Newsom, he helped me with that. Hillary Pinnell, they've all been really big parts of my story to get me to where I am today.
So are you doing any creative writing now?
You know, I as I'm thinking about it, that's like the one thing I've kind of let go really to the back burner. But again, being a parent now too, having a 2-year-old, Emerson Knievel, she keeps my hands really full. So really writing personally for myself is what's on the side. But I think my creative writing gets to shine a little bit, even in just writing the captions for Instagram posts and stories I do for the yearbook Instagram. That shines through. And that's always really fun for me.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now that the idea Emerson Knievel, I'm hearing a book series on Emerson Knievel.
That is good.
Children's books,
I
right?
know.
Would that
I
not be
know.
cool?
That actually would be really cool, Joe. I'm gonna have to write that one down.
You're gonna, I
You
mean,
never know.
my kids loved the No David books and
Yes.
what was the little girl that was always getting into trouble? Um, Shucks. I loved reading them too, and the name is completely leaving me.
Yeah.
It'll come back
There's
to
so
me.
many,
But
children's books.
yeah,
Yes.
Emerson Knievel, little series, something to think about.
Okay.
So,
And that makes me think one thing I've done too since being a parent, like on Shutterfly, you can make just like the little picture books. So I've done a few of those for Emerson. And not only do I do the pictures, like I'll do a little writing with it too. Like one that she loves is I did one that's like the day you were born. And she like almost knows how to read it now. So see, I could even just do that. You heard it here first. Thank
all
you, Joe,
right,
for that
okay,
idea. Yeah.
that'll be good. So you were already into your teaching career. You'd already started teaching
Mm-hmm.
when, making those big bucks, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
When you decided to come back and get your master's degree, what sparked that? What made you want to come back and do that?
So speaking of the big bucks, definitely wanted more of that because those of you listening that go into education know somebody in education, that's how you move up on the pay scale. But I also just felt like I kind of didn't fully live out my dream of getting that journalism degree, which still technically I don't have that journalism degree, but communication, a master's in communication, like that's pretty dang close. And my mentor at work, she was my newspaper advisor in high school, my cheer coach. She's one of my very best friends now. My colleague still, she got her, I think, master's, in communication at UCM when she had started teaching. And I've always said I want to be just like her when I grew up. So I knew it was a possibility. Some of my other mentors had also gone through the program at UCM. So already having that experience that I loved so much in undergrad, it was a no-brainer for me. I didn't look anywhere else. I was like, yep, we're doing it at UCM. And I've never once regretted that.
Well, I'm for one, as one of your former professors, glad that's the choice you made. I loved having you in class because when you bring graduate students in as a professor teaching graduate classes, I love my undergrads, but
Mm-hmm.
most of the time they don't have a whole lot of life experience. And grad students come in and you're able to bring that experience and what as a teacher, what you've taught in the classroom. If I've had radio station professionals come in and what they learn in the radio station, I think it just
Mm-hmm.
brings such a richer experience to everybody.
Absolutely. I agree. And it was cool getting to hear from some other perspectives because I think we had other people that were teachers and I connected with those people the most in the program, but hearing what other people were doing. My same mentor I was talking about, she and I, when we go to journalism day with our kids every year at Mizzou, because they do journalism day in March, April every year, we always make the joke of like when they're presenting to kids, like, oh, like this is what we can use. Like if we ever don't want to teach anymore, like there's so many other job opportunities out there. And I think being in the program at UCM just highlighted that even more and gave me those connections.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I want to read back what you wrote when I asked you about this part of the campaign. You can get there
Mm-hmm.
from here. You wrote, I am at my best professionally and personally. Not only has the program affirmed my passion and talent for writing, but it has also challenged me and brought me out of my comfort zone several times. Tell me about that. First of all, how did it affirm your passion for writing?
So I think just like how I spoke to now as a parent, like doing just creative writing, like it's such an idyllic thing to think that I can just go sit in a cabin in the woods and write all day and like I'm gonna make money, make a living for my family. Like that's not real. That doesn't happen. So even though that goes to the back burner, one big thing personally that came out of doing the master's program in communication was I had started a blog in I think my freshman year of college. Yeah, one of my former bosses at a restaurant I worked at always encouraged me to do that because she knew I loved writing. But it kind of like tapered away as I got busy. I got my degree. I was a first, second, third year teacher, and that was crazy. So I even like kind of rebooted my blog, which was really cool and good for me because that's kind of how I process through things. And that's been a cool way to connect with former students that I've had now that I've had 7 years in the classroom. A lot of them have really loved reading what I've written there, and I connect with them over that. Even some students that I had in class, but maybe we didn't have the strongest relationship. Like it's been crazy. They'll follow me on Instagram and they're like, oh my gosh, like this really affected me. Like I want to read more. And so it's cool to see those relationships grow. So personally, I really love that. And then just professionally, being a yearbook advisor, I was not a yearbook kid. I was a newspaper kid. So there's a lot of similarities there, but also a lot of major differences. So yearbook is something I had no preparation for. I learned on the job as I went. And I was very grateful to have some really awesome seniors my first year teaching that really helped me through it. But like social media promotion was the very last thing on my mind. I've always been fascinated with social media. I remember when I got a Twitter in high school and Instagram. I remember getting Facebook in middle school. I even remember before Snapchat was a thing, my friends and I would just send like selfies back and forth and like text and like basically that was Snapchat. So like kind of we invented it, I guess. But I've always had this fascination with social media, and sometimes I'll pull back a little bit and then I'll go all in. I'm kind of more in a pulling back phase right now, but I just think you learn and grow with social media as you learn and grow in life as a person. But that is one thing that doing the graduate program, our social media for Lee Summit North yearbook has just exploded. There's still a lot of room to grow, but I'm really excited. Next month at our yearbook camp, which is at UCM, I get to present a session for the very first time on promoting your yearbook program on social media. So I'm super stoked about that because I wouldn't have that opportunity or even be remotely prepared for that opportunity without the graduate program.
That's really exciting. You're gonna have to let me know when that session is. I'll drop in and watch that one.
Yeah,
That'll be interesting. I
absolutely.
like that. How did the master's program help you or encourage you to step out of your comfort zone?
I feel like the blog thing was huge with that because I think as a public educator, I share a lot about my faith journey, and like sharing your opinion just on like anything on the internet, especially in today's day and age, is so terrifying. And just doing that publicly, and for anybody to see that, I've always been very cautious about, like I'm not targeting it to students. And so that's why it's like interesting. It's like former students that have gone out and found my blog. Like I didn't push it on them whatsoever. In fact, I like never even really mention it to them, but some of them have found it over the years. That was a really scary leap to take, but I've had nothing but positive feedback over it. So that's a really, really cool thing.
Good, good.
Yeah.
So what's next for Jessica Brown?
Hmm. That's a good question. I keep telling people a lot of so again, I went to Lee Summit North. So a lot of my friends there are getting to the point that they're retiring, which I always tell them, like, no, you're not allowed to. You're going to teach here forever and ever. But like, I get it. If I could retire, some days I would. I keep telling everybody I want to make it to year 10 in education because I think it's really lofty and hard right now as a young teacher to say, oh, yeah, I'm going to retire like 30 years. Like, I can do that. That'd be cool. But I just don't know. So this next year will be year 8. After year 10, I don't know. My husband, who I also met at UCM, so we just love UCM, big Mules family. We love it.
That's out.
He is getting his specialist degree right now, and I think something with superintendent. His goal someday is to be an athletic director. So we met in the English education program, and he's a trader and went to Northwest for both of his. I know advanced degrees. I know it kills me. Yeah. But he's loving that. So he wants to probably be an athletic director someday. I don't know that I have aspirations to ever move up in administration in public education. I even made the comment, we were looking randomly. We have no intention of moving right now. We also moved while I was in grad school. So that was a fun little layer of things too, getting classes done. Yeah. But he ran into a former student at a wedding we were at over the weekend who he student taught in Warrensburg because he student taught at Warrensburg High School. And they were talking about housing markets. We were looking at houses in Warrensburg, and I was like, oh, I mean, that'd be cool someday to like maybe be a professor in do a little bit of what you do. Maybe I could do that because I have some colleagues who are already doing that, like night classes at just like Longview and Lee Summit, that kind of thing. Or even my friend that just retired this year, she's teaching like Tuesdays and Thursdays, something I think maybe for UMKC. So doing that and still being in education, because I can't imagine not being around students. I can't imagine not having that part of my everyday. Like, I know that I never just want to sit behind a computer like this on a hot day like today. Like, this is great, this is fine. But even just thinking about, getting through COVID, both teaching and taking classes, like that was hard. And having the podcast really helped. So I could at least get out and walk while I listened to the lecture or whatever it was. So I don't know. And then there's still that dream of being an author in the back of my mind. So I don't know. We'll see. But year 10 in education is kind of like the goal right now.
All right. So get to that year 10, that strategic plan, the long range plan,
yes.
and then reevaluate and look at it.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, last question, and it's kind of two questions. First of all, what advice would you give to a current UCM student? And then what would you say to somebody who, like you, was in their professional career and decided or was thinking about they wanted to go back to for a master's degree about the program at UCM? So first to a current and then to a potential future.
Okay. So a current student, it's hard to say if you should I know you can't really call it a gap year. I guess maybe you could, because I kind of had some gap years before I went back. I think it really depends on what your professional aspirations are. As a current student, you already know you're in the very best school, you're in the best place, you're already living there. I think it would have been really cool to be on campus and to take some classes in person in the program, because I know there were a lot when I would look through the course catalog. I still had great options as an online student, but you can do even more when you're in person. So just having that advantage of you're already there, you're already on campus, you already are familiar with things. That would be a really good reason to push through and keep going in the communication program. But really just, the diversity of what there is to offer in UCM's communication program, you really can't go wrong with doing it. Now, if you're already out in the professional world doing whatever, kind of on the flip of what I just said, the fact that there are so many online classes offered, and I had never done, I don't think I ever did any online classes ever in high school, which is wild because I have some students now that have come through that I'm their only in-person teacher and all 6 of their other classes are online. Wow. That's just wild for me to fathom. I know, but that works for some people. But what there is offered online is a great number of classes, great things you can do. And I think professors like you, Joe, you guys really make it a point. You really care about us. And you don't want it to just be boring, here, just do this discussion board, write this paper, do this. I was always very engaged in the content every week. And it was really applicable to what I was doing professionally. And I think that's what's cool about the courses too. I remember probably in social media promotion is when we did, we had to do news jacking. We had to use each term and literally do it with our social media. And that was a great challenge. That was kind of my jumping off point of okay, yeah, I can take this social media promotion thing seriously and see benefits from it right here, right now.
Well, I am so glad you got to be a part of it, and you chose to be a part of it, and I got to be a part of that journey for you. Jessica Brown, thank you so much for being with us today.
You're welcome. It's been great, Joe. I've loved catching up with you, and I hope that everybody can take something away from our conversation.
Well, and thanks to all of our listeners for joining us today. Remember, you can watch the podcast on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/UCMMN. That stands for UCM Media Network. You can also listen to it on Spotify. I'm Dr. Joe Moore, reminding you, you can get there from here. Have a great day.